Now, the honor of announcing the main guest of the afternoon is not mine, but it's the honor of a great friend of ours. Have a look.
There's a fantastic event taking place right now. I wish I could be there, but unfortunately I'm trapped in Romania due to a governmental level matrix attack. I want to give a huge shout out to Terry and also to Candace, who are doing fantastic work, especially Candace as of late. She's been doing amazing things exposing the matrix, and Terry's doing all right as well. Hopefully I'll be there at the next one. I look forward to taking part, and I wish you all the best.
So there's a shout. Well, you've already heard the name now, so that's just the moment for the music to start. Candace Owens is here!
Hello, thank you guys, wow. Please be seated. What an honor to be here. I actually had no idea that I was the honored guest of the day, so that's wonderful. Also, this is my first time in Amsterdam. What a wonderfully beautiful city. Truly, truly such a beautiful city. Really makes you just appreciate so much about the architecture when you come from America, where we tend to tear everything down and make everything new. A city like this is really beautiful. But let's get started because we have a lot to talk about, and I know that I don't have too much time. I guess first and foremost, things have gotten pretty ridiculous in the world, right? Very ridiculous in the world is kind of the only way to say it. I was doing an interview earlier with someone who was playing devil's advocate. I don't know if that's a phrase that you guys have here, devil's advocate, kind of just playing both sides of the narrative and asking me questions about the LGBTQ agenda, you know, the never-ending letters agenda. Every year it's a new letter. And they were asking me, you know, but why do you care, right? Shouldn't we just live and sort of let live? And I get this question a lot, by the way. A lot of people who are critical of me, you know, why do you care if this person holds this perspective? And now we've suddenly arrived at people asking, why do you care if we're pushing this narrative that children can pick their genders? Well, because first and foremost, you should always care if people are being lied to, right? And that's what's happening across the board, is we are just being lied to. And in fact, we've been lied to so much and so routinely by so many that it actually registers to some people's ears as quite shocking when you simply say the truth. Like, it's a shock. It's how dare you say the truth. That's not acceptable. You know, in America, we have free speech, thanks to the vision of our founding fathers. And it took me, I guess, really getting into politics to realize how significant that is, to be able to speak freely, why it is so important. If you don't have free speech, how quickly a society can become totalitarian. But what I will say is that the media and the education system has sort of gotten around free speech in America. And the way that they do this is through psychology. Psychology is very important. Psychiatry is very important. Understanding the field of psychiatry and the field of psychology is very, very important. Understanding it historically is very, very important. Because what they do, obviously, is they create this idea of political correctness, right? It's not polite to say to a man that is wearing a dress that he is not a woman. It's not polite. Political correctness. And then the media rushes in and they're calling you names, right? You're a transphobe. You're a homophobe, right? You're sexist. You're racist. You're misogynist. Well, the worst of all, ready? You're a conspiracy theorist. And if you don't stand up to those sorts of things, you'll blink, and tomorrow the things that they will be calling a conspiracy will be quite strange. We are probably about 10 years away from them saying that it's a conspiracy to believe that men cannot become women, right? There is no scientific evidence to prove that men cannot become women. You know, they update it, things change, and they use that sort of language to make you feel foolish, to make you feel stupid, and to make you feel wrong, when common sense tells you that you're looking at a man wearing a dress, right? Essentially, we have arrived at the point in an Orwellian society where they are instructing all of us not to believe our own eyes, right? not to follow your own senses. So I'm going to explain to you why I think psychology, psychiatry, all of it is actually the most important thing. That really has become the weapon of Marxists, right? Understanding psychology. They understand that with enough persistence, your mental is not unlike your physical. So if I'm hitting you in the arm over and over and over again, really hard, eventually you're going to bruise, right? And I think what they've understood is that they keep hitting your mind with something, no matter how false it is, no matter how ridiculous it is, no matter how crazy it is, eventually it's going to make an impact, right? In some regard, many people are beginning to accept things that are just unbelievably ridiculous, that shouldn't even pass the sniff test, but with enough convincing, especially when you turn that on a mind that isn't even mature yet. Children, this is their obsession with children. They're starting to pollute their reality, and it's quite scary. And so I got into a little bit of trouble. I'm always in a little bit of trouble, actually, when I think about it. One of the many reasons I've been in some trouble recently is I was unpacking the history of psychiatry, modern psychology, the father of psychology, Sigmund Freud. And part of my awakening in my adulthood and learning politics is understanding that the public school system, was pushed by Marxists for a very clear reason. I mean, we're looking at stalling youth. Children are convinced that they're learning something in the school system when in reality they're becoming agents for the state. And they're removing parts of history, and they're training people to believe that people that were actually the most sinister people in the world are now being hailed as heroes. And Sigmund Freud really earned my ire. When I began to learn more about him, and I learned more about his friends, and he's considered this big hero, the father of modern psychology. And when we talk about the trans agenda, that's exactly where you look. All these psychologists started popping up. He's the father of the psychoanalytic movement, interpreting dreams. It's nice to learn in school. Oh, okay, psychology works. But then when you actually learn about who Sigmund Freud was, you learn that his best friend, who he very clearly had a homosexual relationship, Wilhelm Fliess, molested his son, Robert Fliess. All of his friends were molesting their children, and he created that field of psychoanalysis because he was seeing a bunch of women that were coming in, and they were saying that they had been molested, and he created a theory to convince them that, no, actually, you have feelings for your father never molested you. You actually have feelings for your father. All of these complexes and psychoanalytical things that he was doing was essentially he's the father of modern gaslighting, right? He's the father of modern gaslighting. And when you go after their heroes, they don't like that. And what I've done very well is I show people true sources where you can go and look at this, or you can read Sigmund Freud's letters to Wilhelm Fliess. I give them real names. So I don't just say a statement like, the reason why I'm against transgenderism is because I think it will lead to pedophilia. I now say, no. The reason I'm against transgenderism is because I know the history of it, and it began with pedophilia, okay? It began with pedophilia, this entire movement that we're seeing today. And people don't like that. People don't like when you give real names and you say, why don't you look up Magnus Hirschfeld, another person that came out of that psychological movement that was happening. Why don't you look him up and see what he was interested in? He was a pervert who had the idea, all the psychologists had the idea, that rather than people recognizing that they were perverts, they could gaslight people into believing that they were actually doctors, and that they understood their minds better than anybody else. And actually what we're doing, and Magnus Hirschfeld was trying, part of a group of psychologists that wanted to convince the world that actually having feelings for minors, having sexual feelings for minors was okay, that these weren't taboos, these were things that were normal, that people were too closed-minded. He was using examples. They were going down to Africa and taking pictures of Africans to justify creating photo books and photography of what were considered taboos at that time. People don't know that when they learn this now. People think of psychology as, wow, there was this breakthrough that happened, and suddenly these people were actually interested in making society better. Now, this isn't to say that all psychologists and psychiatrists today are harmful. Of course, that's not the circumstance. You could never say something so sweeping. But it is to say that it is important to understand that craft and that field, because when you look around and you want to know the lunacy that we have accepted, it begins with their understanding on how they could get us to accept it, right? And now I see today, you see all sorts of things that you'd never expect, and you wonder, where is all this lunacy coming from, right? I mean, one thing we should never forget is COVID. Wow, I'll tell you what that was. What a strange time. You literally had people that were upset to see people breathing, right? Talk about the success of psychology. This was pretty much a global experiment. Let's see how far we can take it. We are the psychopaths. Let's see how far we can take it. Can we get them to yell at one another if they're breathing? And by golly, people did it. They were yelling at each other. A kid had his mask down. People are yelling at kids, "Don't you breathe," right? None of this made sense. Obviously, it did not make sense, but they were gaslighting you by repeating the thing, right? The constant little punch to your brain. 6 feet social distancing, right? Don't go see your grandma. You're a grandma killer, right? And in your right mind, you're going, this doesn't make any sense. Even on planes, they had a policy that if you were older than 2, you had to wear a mask, but if you were under 2, you didn't have to wear one. Like, the science of that obviously makes no sense. They were making up the rules as they went along. And any person that questioned it, well, of course, we were conspiracy theorists. These are the words they use, by the way. Now that I tell you the words, you're going to pay attention to it. The media's favorite words are bizarre, right? Bizarre conspiracy theory that masks don't work. Bizarre conspiracy theory that the vaccines don't work. Again, trying to gaslight you into believing that, we're the experts. We understand how this thing actually works. I mean, the concept of it being 6 feet, exactly 6 feet, something in the back of everyone's mind went, that sounds really foolish and ridiculous. But onward people went, right? Onward, and suddenly, I don't know if you had this here, but in the grocery stores, everyone was walking 6 feet apart like this and yelling if you stepped, closer and you were 5 feet apart. Somebody was yelling, you're gonna make me sick, grandma killer. You want grandma to die. All sorts of insane things that were literally coming directly from the media. And to me, I thought, if we don't pass this mass psychosis, if people start believing this, the globalists are really gonna understand how much power they have over humanity, And I instantly said, yeah. And I encouraged people, from my Twitter feed, I said, don't get the vaccine. Don't get the vaccine. Obviously, they're rolling this thing out. They're telling you it's going to make you healthy. And I had done a lot of research into the field of vaccines altogether long before COVID. And I understood the evil of a drug cartel that is operating in light, in plain daylight. This is a drug cartel that is operating. You've got Hollywood. Of course, that's a part of the propaganda machine. It was created as a propaganda machine. People in America shocked, had no idea. When I tell them that, do you know that your State Department has a budget for Hollywood? There's an entire office in the Pentagon that is dedicated to creating Hollywood films, to tell you what to believe about history, painting a picture for you on who the bad guys are. I mean, throughout my entire life, every movie, the villain was German speaking, right? These little things that you don't realize are meant to seed your brain, to make you think, little punches. Every time you hear a German accent, you better be scared, And these sorts of things that we don't pay attention to. But of course, Hollywood is a part of this agenda. Everything that is bad, they are the drugs that are given to children. This is why they turn these people into idols. This is why they want you to cry when you see these people. They want you to believe that they're some sorts of gods, right? If Taylor Swift rolled up her sleeve, she didn't, but if she had rolled up her sleeve and said, get the vaccine, everyone would have gotten it. So many people would have gotten it simply because they idolize her. They don't think about Hollywood as a propaganda arm. They don't think about Hollywood as intentionally perpetuating these sorts of themes. Suddenly, all throughout Hollywood, we're seeing men that are wearing dresses on the red carpet. What is this? Of course, it's a decision that is being made at the top to fill us with filth, to make us accept filth, to make us think it's normal, until it becomes so regular that they can then look at us and they can call us the bigots, right, for saying, no, this is perverted and this is wrong and this is backwards. And the way that psychology works, what they have figured out, is that people respond to fear. That always, by the way, seems to be their bottom line. It's like, do this or die. There's no in between, right? It's like, get the vaccine, save lives. If you don't get it, you're a grandma killer. Get on board with the environmentalism, or else the planet is going to perish. It's very extreme. It's very apocalyptic, always, their language in all of these regards. Get on board with transgenderism, or kids are going to commit suicide, right? That's always, there's nothing that's sensible about it. And then, of course, what that allows is for people that believe in this stuff to turn around to you and to say, what kind of a monster are you that you want all of these people to die? Get on board with lunacy. Get on board with something that is so maniacal, simply because if you don't, so-and-so or this thing is going to die. And I think a lot of the times, people can't quite thread what it is that we're seeing. Because I remember me sort of waking up in politics, and I was hyper-focused initially on Black Americans, of course, because of my own experiences growing up and recognizing that the race narrative was just absurd. Clearly, they don't ever want racism to go away. It's now become a business model, right? It was a business model. Again, that fear campaign, how do you control all Black Americans? Well, you keep telling them that if they don't do this, then slavery is going to be back. That's it. There's no in between. We're going to go right back down to the South, and we're going to be picking cotton if you vote for Trump. Very extreme, but this is what they say. I promise you, when Trump was running, this was the narrative that they were going with. Like, it made no sense, but it worked. Black Americans were extremely fearful. You see this same sort of maneuvering and the same sort of language for the Jewish population, right? It's constantly, it's going to be the Holocaust. World War II is always the reference to make people fearful, and that because we study that period so much in schools. Again, an apocalyptic narrative going forward for the climate change agenda. There's nothing that's more apocalyptic. It really is an apocalyptic cult at this point. I don't know if it's the same story here in the UK, in the Netherlands, but over in America, we have basically every generation is told that they're going to die in 10 years if they don't do something, right? So my generation, it was global warming. And we were made to watch in classrooms a film that was done by Al Gore called Inconvenient Truth. Al Gore, yes, the guy who flies around private everywhere, was here to teach us about the climate and why carbon is bad. And of course, again, the psychology of someone that's young, our brains are not developed, you're watching this in your classroom and you're seeing these images. They had these cartoon drawings in the middle of it to show you that polar bears were gonna drown, if you didn't get involved. And then what ended up happening was actually the climate started to cool by accident in 2011, and they just they stopped saying global warming. That was our generation, that phrase, you don't hear it anymore. Now they just say climate change. And when you talk to people in older generations, they tell you that it was global cooling for a while. They were all fearful. It was literally the exact opposite. It's like the planet's going to freeze and you're all gonna die in 10 years. It's always 10 years. They want the kids to know, you got 10 years and you're dead, kid, right? And people eat it up. We had the ozone layer, we had acidic oceans, acid rain. There was a generation that believed that it was gonna rain, and I don't know what was gonna happen. Maybe they were just gonna perish on the spot. But the point is they keep being wrong, right? The 10 years expires, and that's not to say that we shouldn't care about our planet, that we shouldn't want, less plastic in the ocean. These are common sense things. We know that that's obviously not good. But this idea that you're gonna die in 10 years, right? Now we have children that are leaving school, cutting school, because they believe the planet's going to be over in 10 years. And somehow if they walk out on school, it's gonna be fixed or something, right? And you see that and you go, wow, that is the fear campaign, constantly making individuals scared. And so you ask yourself, what does the climate change fear have anything to do with the trans agenda fear? Telling parents that if they don't allow their children to take drugs, puberty blockers, unbelievably deranged and satanic, to alter the body of a child. And you ask yourself, how could parents get on board with this? You know, I was so angry about this when I saw this. How could any parent get on board with this? And I've softened to these parents because I've interviewed now people that are trans and that have regret about the transition and realized they were manipulated when they were a child, and hearing their stories, and they say that their parents got on board with it because their parents truly believed, they truly trusted the experts, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, who told them that, no, this is the right thing. The phrase that they say to these parents is, would you prefer a trans kid? This is the question. Would you prefer a trans kid or a dead kid? It's horrific. It's emotional manipulation. Of course, in a sane world, you should be able to trust your doctor. You should be able to know that your doctor is at first pledging an oath to do no harm. Except everything about the last 10 years should make you pause and consider whether or not that's still true, right? Everything that we have seen. Because don't forget, and this is not to say that all doctors are evil, but don't forget that they have the same brains that we all have. They're sitting in a school, in a medical school all day with textbooks that have been specifically chosen for them. And they are having information gently jabbed into their head, constantly, repeated, you know? Tell the kids to take the vaccines or they'll die. If you see a child and they're confused about their gender, you give them the puberty blockers, right? They're cogs in a larger machine as well. But yeah, you take a look at that, and then so you've got the trans agenda, you've got the climate agenda, you're going, what on earth is happening? You obviously see the increase of these letters encouraging children to just pick a letter. Pick a letter. What are you, a lesbian, gay, intersex? I don't even know what the A is about. Honestly, I stopped learning after the T. I'm just not interested anymore. It's giving me dyslexia. Seriously, just, it's done, right? But then you look at feminism, and this one's really interesting. I absolutely hate feminism. It's the worst thing. It is cancerous. Let me just say, LOL to anybody that thinks we are living under a patriarchy. We are very clearly existing under a matriarchy, and it is hell, and I want off, right? I want off the crazy train. You look at the feminist movement, and it's crazy for a lot of reasons. It's crazy because it is the encouragement of things that don't make women happy, right? Like a couple of people got together and were like, oh, we should tell men not to hold doors. What? We should pay on dates. What? I am so okay with letting men pay on a date and holding the doors open. We should go to work and work long days. Clearly men are having so much fun, right? Working and killing themselves. We should get involved in that. And of course, when you learn this in school, it's just the equality between the sexes. Who doesn't want that? Don't you want opportunities? And then when you learned the real sinister Marxist beginnings of feminism, you really understand that this was always meant to be an evil, right? The creation of the patriarchy, the creation of terms, these fictitious terms that they come up with every single day, like toxic masculinity. You know, toxic masculinity was a phrase that was created by toxic women, okay? The idea that being a man is wrong. And at the same time, and this is what's very confusing, that they're telling women to be like men. Go climb the corporate ladder. Just be a man. So much fun. Do some push-ups. At the very same time, they're telling women to do this, and women are miserable, and a lot of people make fun of the women that are now on TikTok. I don't have a TikTok, but these videos get sent to me from my producer of women crying, they're leaving university and they're suddenly smacked in the face with the real world, right? All of that fluffy, it's gonna be amazing. You're gonna work really long days and make no money. And women get out and they're genuinely shocked. Their tears are real on TikTok. I believe that those tears are real. And I defend these women because they've been sold a lie. Their whole life they've been sold a lie. They're told to do the opposite of what would make them happy, right? The opposite of finding a partner in life. And then, quite magnificently, men are being told to act like women. Women are being told to act like men, and men are being told to act like women, right? Again, these phrases, toxic masculinity. Oh, you know, men, you should cry more, you know, share your emotions. How about don't, right? How about don't? I'm not keen to jump on the internet and see a bunch of men crying. I don't want that, you know? And the reason is not because I don't think men should have feelings or that I'm not aware that obviously men do have feelings, but I understand that this encouragement of men to act like women, man, you want to see a society leave overnight? There is no society that can survive without strong men, okay? And similarly, there is no society that can survive without women in their divine role. You see, this is going to shock a lot of people, but men and women, we're not so separate, right? I say this to women all the time. We birth men. That's actually our job. We birth them. We marry them. These are our brothers. These are the people that we grow up with. Society is trying to drive this bizarre wedge as if one can survive without the other. It can't. And it sounds, I always say it sounds so, I don't want to say patronizing, but it does when I say this, but I truly mean it when I say God is so profound, right? God is so profound. When you look at the earth and when you examine things in their natural order, man, he really thought through it all, right? He really thought through it all. And there is nothing more perfect and a greater recognition of that than when femininity and masculinity comes together, right? Inside of a household and begins to raise children. You really do see that when you are in a marriage, how perfect it all is, how our instincts are different. Men are never going to be women. Women are never going to be men. Our instincts are different. Nothing will make you more aware of that than having children. My goodness, men and infants, what are you guys just don't know what you're doing for the first couple of months. What's wrong? It's crying. What's happening? Have you tried feeding the baby? Feeding food? And I laugh at these things because I have these moments, and you know, for example, in where I live in Tennessee, we have tornadoes. So when you live in a city that has tornadoes, there are these really loud alarms that go off. It's quite scary when you experience the first time, and that just means to go underground, right? A tornado is about to hit. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's pretty scary if you're not from the South. I just remember these alarms going off in the middle of the night, and me and my husband, you want to talk about just different instincts. I think my husband was just going to go run and beat up the tornado. He was just going to go outside. Him and the security guards are like outside. I'm like, no, we have to get the children. Instantly stepping into this role of a woman as a nurturer, a man as a protector. And nobody planned this. We didn't have a rule. I'm yelling at him to get into the basement. You can't beat up a tornado, obviously. Get safe, get underground. And now we have a society that wants to pervert that wants to pervert divine femininity and divine masculinity, right? And it wants to pervert it in a variety of ways. With women, it encourages hyper femininity in different regards. You know, what happens when something that is so beautiful. Yes, women, we are, of course, more emotional than men. Of course we are. Our instincts are different. The conversations that we have are different. The way that we like to communicate is different. And when an evil group of people want to pervert that, and they say, well, women, now you're voting, they know how to make women feel bad so that they vote in things that are extremely harmful, right? women will feel bad and vote for things that are absolutely awful. And that is the truth. They've hijacked femininity and turned it into something that can be a weapon. And when they want men, and of course masculinity is great, you can also, of course, have an extreme of that. When you're separating this, when you're separating that perfect yin and the yang, and great evil can happen, right? When male aggression is not trained in the right way, when male aggression isn't being used for things like to defend your family, right? To defend what you have created at home. And so when I look around and I see all of these things, and of course for all of us it feels so chaotic, but none of these topics are different. In fact, what they all have in common, transgenderism, feminism, climate change, what they all have in common is they are an attack on the family. That is what this is about. So you revisit, the girl that's skipping school because she thinks the planet's going to be over in 10 years, and you recognize that what they are telling these kids is that it is irresponsible to start families because of the planet. This is a real thing. They quite literally gave an award to Harry and Meghan, one of these climate change groups, gave an award to Prince Harry and Meghan for agreeing to only have 2 kids to preserve the planet. This is the logic of that. It's anti-family. When you looked at BLM's charter, one of the first things they had listed was that they wanted to abolish the nuclear family, right? It's constantly about division. When you even take a look at COVID, what were the encouragements? Get away from your family. You would be such a hero if you don't visit your relative when they're dying. You're such a good person if you don't care about your family, right? The only way to care about your family, they were telling us, is not to care about them at all, right? So nice to allow grandparents to die by themselves, right? I mean, what lunacy. Why do they want everyone to be homosexual? Why do they want these kids to keep picking a letter? Because what a great guard against family. You sterilize yourself before you even have a brain developed. You sterilize yourself if you're on puberty blockers. 2 lesbians, well, if you want to have a kid, you're going to have to turn to the state. 2 men, 2 homosexuals, well, if you want to have a child, you too are going to have to turn to the state, right? The state assumes so much power in our lives when you are able to break down the family unit. This is why they are shouting at normalcy. They've also created a word for that, heteronormative. That's what the kids are learning in school. This is heteronormative when they try to insult you. Oh, yes, I'm heteronormative. I believe that men and women should get married and they should have children, okay? We're not going to make these basic biological things something dirty and perverse. But give it a few years and they will. Of course they will. They'll be saying it's bizarre. They want to have normal families. Bizarre. Conspiracy theory that men and women should be married. Such a conspiracy theory, right? And so you see these attacks that are happening at all angles. You understand why they are polluting women's minds in school to believe that the patriarchy is everywhere because it fosters a resentment in men. They're perverting dating. They're making men afraid to ask a woman on the date because what if she's a feminist, right? Suddenly it's a sexual assault to say, I think you look beautiful today, right? And by the way, then you have a bunch of women complaining, oh, there's no men. Men don't ask us on dates, right? Constantly polluting normal relationships, pretending that normal is wrong, pretending that abnormal is normal. And so the only defense that we have against this thing, right? And I am so optimistic because I have cracked the code, you guys. Allow yourself to be called a name. I'm going to give you basic elementary advice. We're taking it all the way to kindergarten. And I don't know if you guys have kindergarten, 1st grade. Get very scared on the first day of school, right? You're like, I don't want anybody to be mean to me. I don't want to be bullied. I don't want to be called a name. Embrace the names. I've been called all of them. I personally now consider it a game. I've got to catch them all, right? Like Pokemon. Every day, another article. Bizarre conspiracy theory. Bizarre. Candace Owens is an anti-vaxxer. She's a conspiracy theorist. She's a white supremacist. I promise you, they've said that. They've said it. There is no bottom to their stupidity. They have said it. She's a homophobe. She's a transphobe. She's anti-this. She's an internalized misogynist. I've been called an internalized misogynist. And of course, calling me every other anti-name that there is. But I'm not anti-this or anti-that. I'm anti-stupidity. That's it. And so the way that we advance as a society is by not allowing them to call us names, not allowing them to gaslight us, not allow them to believe that we need to pledge our allegiance to some politically correct club. Political correctness is killing us, okay? Political correctness is a weapon that is being used against us to get us to submit to all of these narratives. There's nothing wrong with having a national identity. Of course, you should have a national identity. Of course, we should be allowed to have a national identity. There's nothing about that is backwards or racist or wrong. There's only backwards and racist and wrong if you are a globalist and you are looking to subjugate all of humanity. I know I'm way out of time here, but all of this to say, you guys, please protect your psyche and do not allow them to use fear as a way to manipulate you against the obvious. And it is obviously okay for us to have an identity. Thank you guys so much for having me.